to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast.
All right, welcome back. This is the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast, episode number 44 on the home stretch to 52, the 1 year mark. But that's right, episode 44. Quite a week in Warzone. More things moving into place. The scales being rebalanced. How was your week? We played pretty extensively, Cowboy. 10-inch Cowboy, how was it?
Thank you for that correction. I am a cowboy, but I am known as the 10-inch Cowboy, so thank you for that amendment there. The week was, honestly, it was fantastic. Gameplay aside, it was fantastic. We spent so much time in the war zone. I felt like you and I were in a groove. A couple of friends of ours, we played almost every day. It was just fantastic. Got a lot of time in. Probably the most Warzone I've played in at least a month or two, maybe more. We were zoning hard, a lot of rebirth, even got on the big map. I started trying new guns. I was like having this like pseudo almost like, loadout renaissance, you could say. It was incredible. It was a great week for me. The gameplay was garbage though at times. I was getting just pork rolled by people left and right. Like some games it was so bad, like I would land and literally get killed on Rebirth Island before I'd even land or within like 3 seconds of hitting the ground. I surprisingly broke my legs a lot this week.
Yes, you did.
I don't know why that was. I was really bizarre. I think I was trying to, just because I was getting killed so quickly on the ground, I wanted to shoot in there quick. But wow, a lot to talk about. Great week. How was your week?
Wow, sounds like an action-packed week. I was right there with you for it, although except the one day where you kind of ditched me. That's all right, neither here nor there. You broke your legs quite a bit, I would say. At least 1 or 2 breaks every few matches, which, by your standards is high. Not unreasonably high, but remarkably high this week.
It was. I don't know why. I had changed my controller layout. That was a while ago, and I think I've actually adapted to it pretty fluidly at this point, but something about hitting that L1 bumper to pull the chute still sometimes have a little spasm, and I just do it too late. Sometimes it's that split second, the ground gets really close. You're falling really fast. So if you don't time it right, you can break your legs. A quick note though, to something you said in the introduction. This is our 44th episode. I believe if my math is correct, that means we're 8 away from 52, which would be a 1 year anniversary situation. I'm not sure if we've ran down the calendar timeline, but is there a circumstance? Let me just throw this out there that Vanguard and the new map is released the same week we are celebrating our 1 year anniversary. Is that possible?
I think actually it might be, because going back to something we've been reminding the listeners, we've been theorizing, we've been ahead of the fucking curve with, is the fact that the new map will not be dropping right when Vanguard release date now slotted for November 5th. So as we said, we got to expect new map not then, which would not be our 1 year anniversary. And so, like you said, considering maybe they're going to give it 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if that is the case, that would line us right around potentially serendipitous, 1 year anniversary / first time making the transition into the new Warzone map of all time. To remind all y'all, our first episode went live on December 13th, 2020. So maybe that could be happening, which would just be pretty magical.
I mean, it would be so insane if that was the case. We'd have to do something super special. I don't know what that is, what that feels like, what that sounds like, but that would be incredible. I hope it happens, but if it doesn't happen, that's also okay, as long as they give us a new fucking map.
Yes, well, they are. The Pacific is coming. We just don't have a definitive date yet, but we will keep y'all updated. Appreciate all those that are still riding in the war zone. Those of us who have, as we said, we got into it like we were back in the saddle this week, on our weekly journeys. We had a rebirth crew we were hopping in with, having a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, it was sweaty. We were getting killed a lot, but there were always those games where we came through. I feel like we always got at least 1 win per session. I'm loving where the game's been back to now. Much more balanced, much more weapon variety out there. it's getting scrappier. And speaking of getting scrappier and, getting hungrier, I guess maybe that's why we could attribute this leg breaks, is you were hungrier this week, and that showed when you made a pretty significant jump in terms of your play style and arsenal of choice. You made the jump to trying out the Gallo shotgun. Do you want to share with our listeners what prompted that decision and how that's gone so far?
Yeah, so I had been using the MAC-10 as my short-range secondary pretty much exclusively for a while now. I had tried the Bullfrog, I was trying the MP5, all were fine. I just was going with the MAC-10 because I like it. I love the mobility of the MAC-10. It just was working for me. But we play with a guy, I'm not sure what his gamer tag is.
Smeeden.
We were playing with this guy, Smeeden. Friend of the pod, and
close friend of the pod, close friend of the Cowboy and Tron. Let's not undersell Smeeden here. Come on, I know he might be listening.
Okay, well, I'm just okay. So he's a very good player, a PC player, but he's very good. He's one of those guys that puts up 10, 15 kills a match. He's a hog. He knows how to lay it out, and he had been playing with the Gallo and the throwing knives as his lethal weapon of choice because you can pump them full of lead and then throw the knife and it's over. And the thing is, it's a long reload time with the Gallo. That was the whole thing. But so I saw a clip of him playing, and it was like incredible how he was just shredding people with this Gallo. So he convinced me to try it, and I loaded it up, and I realized it's actually the perfect amateur weapon because, one, you don't have to ADS. The whole thing is that you're hip firing with this bad boy, and the aiming, you basically just have to be facing them. You're not it's so much less detailed. It's so much less precise. You're just blasting this semi-automatic shotgun in the general direction of your enemy, and for the most part, until, this nerf we'll get to that. But basically, it was incredible. And I all of a sudden realized I was winning gunfights that I had no business being in this week. And it was so empowering and it felt fantastic. And the Cowboy wanted to get a little wild, so he ended up pairing the Gallo with the car. So I was running a marksman rifle shotgun loadout, having such a great time. I had found the groove again with the car. I was using that in really anything outside of the shotgun's range. So I was, sniping fairly closely, but it was really, really fun. I really had a good time with the shotgun. It was refreshing. It gave me some new pizzazz in the game. You know what I mean?
Well, I gotta say, when I heard the news, I wasn't there for the change when he made the decision, but I heard the news and I was like, wowee, this guy's really going for it now. And a little impressed, but I was like, you know what? This makes total sense to me. And it sounded like you were having a lot of success, and firsthand experience dropping in with you was like, I saw you on the ticker. I saw you pushing rooms. You had a different attitude about you, a different consistency. I'd say your level of consistency of winning those gunfights was elevated quite a bit. But what was so ironic was literally the day after you make this change, you commit to this change, and we're going to dive into this first topic of the week, is they released that after the Gallo's, I guess, been like a quote unquote broken gun, like a laying under the surface, not quite popular enough for them to address it, but God, you got to be using this fucking thing. And you finally get on the bandwagon, and what happens is they nerf it finally.
Literally the next day. It was comical. I know you had a good laugh because I was like, yeah, I made the change. I'm loving it. Next morning, boom, Gallo's nerfed. And I was just like, God damn it, dude. But that's how it goes. That's how it goes when you're wheeling and dealing in the war zone. So I still used it after the nerf. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but the nerf only addressed the Gallo's kind of shooting. How do I explain this? Like the range that it has. The damage profile essentially at range at different lengths. So, it was basically they made it shorter, which it should be. I wasn't using it as even a mid to short to mid range weapon. I just liked it because if I knew somebody was in a house and I was going to push that house, I was like, listen here, motherfucker, I feel confident enough to run up in there and tell you what's up. And I was doing that, and I was fucking pretty successful with it.
Yeah.
And that, with any other SMG, I never had that confidence. I'd go into a house dead before I could even get a shot off typically. But with the Gallo, gave me a lot of confidence.
And yes, so they issued a weapons tuning patch midweek That's now 2 or 3 weeks in a row. I think we've had a weapons tuning patch. This one, yeah, the highlight of it was the Gallo shotgun. And the way they described the reasoning behind the nerf is the shotgun Bravo, I guess is what it's fucking called, has been incredibly dominant due to its effective damage range, magazine capacity, mobility, and rate of fire. By reducing its effective damage ranges, the shotgun Bravo or Gallo will begin to feel more like a shotgun and less like a sniper. So to go back to what you said, yes, I did laugh. I really laughed loud. I even think I went to, Lady Tron and explained to her the whole situation so she could have a laugh at your expense. But then I dove into these patch notes. I saw that all they did is, as you touched on, the maximum damage range was decreased by 1 meter. The second damage range was decreased by about 2.5 meters. And the third damage range was decreased by about 2.5, 3 meters as well. So as you said, when we kind of got into it, it's like, look, you don't need to abandon it. You can stick with the Gallo. It just doesn't quite have the range it did. And as you said, still pretty effective, especially the way you're using it, which is as a point blank, toe-to-toe face smasher. Am I right?
Exactly. It's basically who's got more power, bitch, and that's me with the Gallo.
See, that's the attitude I like to see, not this, Farah or Krieg type of accuracy. Like, give me the big fucker, I'm going to just spray and probably outduel you. So that was the big weapons thing there. They also, though, the Bullfrog, as we've touched on, a real solid SMG as it's been, hasn't really ever been touched since it was buffed way back when. But, well, now I guess they realized it was getting pretty dominant, so they nerfed that. And unfortunately, from what I saw from True Game Data, posted some side-by-sides, is that the recoil that they have adjusted is now broken. But the way they said is the Bullfrog is a true jack of all trades. It has mobility, effective damage range, handling, and base magazine capacity, which would often act as a free attachment. These changes that they're making with this patch, in conjunction with a recoil bug fix, will bring the Bullfrog much closer to the competition. And so the ADS speed was decreased, the movement speed was decreased, and the ADS movement speed was decreased. As I said, the recoil quote-unquote fix, sounds like they actually fucking broke it. I don't know if that's since been patched, but unfortunately sounds like the Bullfrog is off the menu on the Bayou.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I obviously the short range for me was dominated by the Gallo this week, as we just talked about. I didn't really play with the Bullfrog. I may have picked it up actually as ground loot after dropping in and stealing it from a dead body or something like that. And it's definitely, my question about the Bullfrog, and maybe you can answer this for me, or somebody can answer this in the Discord for me. You have this weapon that has the ability, unlike a lot of other weapons, or SMGs, I should say, that has like an 80 or something round clip, 80 round, mag in it. So you can
85 round, actually.
85. Yeah. So what is the trade-off there? And my question is, can you build a Bullfrog that is like giant ammo capacity? And then there's also like you can trade away that for a different perk that makes it, say, more of like a long range weapon. Like, is it that well-rounded to where you can build it to fill all of these different slots? Almost like the AK was, where you could see people building the short range long K and the long range AK. You see what I'm saying?
I think really the biggest strength is ammo capacity and mobility. I don't think the damage at range is that effective to where you can build it, like you said, as a mid to long range option. It seems like these other guns, the MP7, formerly the Milano, kind of really fill in that gap.
Yeah, it's not like the Milano. Yeah.
This one was just more like, especially in large team configurations, quick ADS. I've seen people do the builds where they actually even forego the 85 round mag, and they don't put any magazine attachment because the base magazine, I think, is like 45 rounds or something like that. So they would just build it for speed and ADS and really could outgun people. Unfortunately, now it sounds like they've broken it a bit. Hopefully it gets fixed back in the mix. I have mine leveled up quite a bit, but I've been sticking with the Modern Warfare MP5, really loving that. I've been hip firing a ton in those close quarter situations. And I guess that prompts a question. When you've been doing this Gallo, have you been hip shotting a little bit more or less? What's the status on the hip shotting?
It's only hip shots. Only. You don't ADS at all with the Gallo. No. The whole premise is that you're just, what's great about that is once you find that groove and because it took me a bit, most of this week to kind of figure out You don't want to aim. Like really with any shotgun, I feel like that's the whole point. You just hip fire and you're just blasting this spray pattern, that's going to really hurt your enemy. And if you're really close range and you happen to be aiming near their face and you hip fire before they get a shot off, they're down, man. That's what's so great about it is no hip fire. And that's an adjustment you have to make. The other thing too with the Gallo is that, using throwing knives as your lethal. You're not using a frag. You don't have a Semtex. You're throwing knives. So like, you also, with that, you're just kind of like aiming your POV towards them and throwing. You know what I'm saying?
So you're really using the throwing knives? I don't think I noticed that. I thought you had proxy mines.
I did. Friend of the pod, another good friend of the pod, Sparks was playing with us, and he, I believe, was downed, and I raced up and ended up downing the guy that downed him, and then, from across the room threw the knife. It was probably the first time I used the knife successfully without thinking about it, and was kind of just instinctual. And he was like, whoa, bro, you're like a sweat lord now. And of course, I totally owned it. I was like, yeah, of course, I'm doing the knives. Of course, I do this all the time.
And you didn't clip it, though.
I didn't clip it. No. Because it's just some loser throwing a knife. Like every other guy and their mom is doing that these days. So I'm not trying to lie. I'm not on some pedestal.
Oh.
It's great within the amateur rankings, but I'm not sure that other people need to see me being like the guy that typically kills them. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we talk about our 1 year anniversaries coming up. We got to look back at the evolution of the 10-Inch Cowboy, which has been happening before our eyes and ears here on the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. He went from a guy rocking a LMG and a Pila, holding himself up in the back of a room, shooting at cars from a distance, praying for some kills there, to a guy with a fucking Gallo shotgun, a Car 98 sniper, and throwing knives, pushing buildings, hip firing here. Pretty remarkable stuff.
It's your boy. I was thinking about, this might be a really hipster move, but I'm thinking about maybe running a Gallo Strela situation because, on the real map on Verdansk, let me just try to explain the benefit of this. If you're playing in a quads match and I got that Gallo and I got the confidence to run into any building and just maul some people down with my Gallo, boom, like I'm that guy. I'm the brute force guy that's going to run in there and just take out the close range guys. But then at the same time, I'm also this technical, like, specialty guy that's also running the Strela. So I'm also taking out any, vehicles that are coming by us. If there's we know there's a team inside of a building, boom, not only am I running there with the Gallo, but maybe I'm breaking some armor plates first with my Strela pointed in that window. I'm almost thinking this could be a super cool, like, niche, loadout option if you're in a quad on the main map. Do you think I'm crazy?
Well, right after I compliment your evolution, your play decisions, your aggressiveness, your amateur colors show through there, I don't personally think that's going to be a great loadout for you, particularly because I don't think you're going to be carrying many, Strela rounds very often, but it is interesting. It's an interesting approach. I encourage you to go for it. I'm all about the unorthodox, fuck the meta, go for what works for you, baby. That said, speaking of clips, your boy Tron did post one on our channel. If you haven't already, go check that out. And I really had an amazing moment, kind of like what I've seen a lot on the internet as I'm facing some guy. We have a one-on-one battle, and this arrogant bastard downs me, and I'm throwing on the self-revive right away. Normally, I'm a little delayed with that one, but this one, I'm like, maybe I can get this guy. Maybe he ain't pushing right away. And he comes pushing me with a sniper, point blank, misses it for the finish. I get the res off, have my MP5 already equipped, hip fire this bitch, and down, and fucking hubris takes this fucker down like a Greek tragedy. What'd you think of that?
I loved it. Sadly, I've been on the receiving end of that where I down someone and then too stupidly don't kill them off, and then somehow they res and their team gets me or they get me. So it was good to see you on the other side of that. That guy is a loser, and he actually should probably be listening to this podcast, frankly.
Yes, he should. It was quite the moment. Chalk one up for the amateurs there. But that said, let's get back to this midweek patch. Those were the two weapons tuning adjustments, the Bullfrog and the shotgun, both being nerfed fairly significantly. Additionally, the Krig barrels were buffed slightly to hopefully kind of restore some some balls to that gun. Haven't really tried it out.
When you say the barrels were buffed, are we saying that the recoil has been diminished?
Yes, you are correct. It was the recoil that was buffed only slightly, so they decreased it from 11.1 to 10% on the horizontal on the various barrels, and the vertical recoil also got buffed slightly on some others, only by it looks like 0.5 or 1.5% in some instances. So a slight buff there, trying to, I guess they said it's a stepping stone weapon, so maybe making that stepping stone a little bigger, a little more aggressive. Also, the AK-47 barrels and the XM4 barrels were nerfed in terms of recoil, because, as I said, AK really stepped to the forefront with this most recent nerf. It's still just as powerful, but they're making it a little harder to handle, which I really dig. This week, I've been mostly bouncing between the AK and the C58. I'm not really sure which one I like best. I even tinkered with the M13, which, as advertised, that fucking thing slaps. Still eats through ammo, but that's a fun one. I like beaming people with that gun. It hasn't lost the joy there.
Didn't try the M13 this week, but I did try the XM4. A friend of the pod, Sparks, recommended that I try it. Obviously had that one leveled up pretty high because it was ground loot for, I feel like, a pretty long time on the main map when we were playing. So I played with the XM4. It still had a little bit too much recoil for me, but as you know, I'm a recoil snob. Probably why I tend to like the rocket launchers, shotguns, and sniper rifles. But the XM4 was pretty good. The AK still has too much recoil for me. And I don't know if it's now I'm just like, it's in my mind that that's your weapon and it's like sleeping with the enemy. Like, I ain't touching that damn thing. Like, get it out of here. I don't care if it's a meta. I'm rolling Strela fucking shotgun from here on out.
All right. Well, we look forward to some clips of that. See the effectiveness or lack thereof. Let's get it going on the YouTube. That said, though, this wasn't your average mid-season week patch. Outside of the weapons tuning updates, there were some pretty significant changes. Most notably were some additions to the buy station. Now, the specialist token has been added as a purchasable item on the buys. I haven't checked because I was too stupid and lazy to see if that's the case in Rebirth or it's only Verdansk, but is now part of something you can buy.
I could be wrong, but I don't believe I saw the specialist token once at a buy on Rebirth this entire week. So I don't think it's on Rebirth. I really don't. We'll get corrected if I'm wrong here, but I believe it's not on Rebirth, only Verdansk.
Yes, so it's been added. I'm not sure the price on that. They said we suspect very few people will be able to say they've purchased a specialist token. However, we do feel it's an opportunity to provide high-tier players with additional impactful outlets for their hard-earned resources, aka money. Additionally, further enabling purchasing power with Hardline is something we would like to continue to explore. So what they did there is with the Hardline perk, it gives you a 25% discount to every item except Self-Revive, which is a 20% discount. Loadout marker is only a 10% discount, and the specialist token is only a 20% discount. So that's a perk I don't think really anyone was running, but they're trying to make it a little bit more enticing with this change. Additionally, the supply run discounts are 50% now on every item except Team Redeploy, which are free, and Loadout Marker, which are now discounted, I guess, by 10% with that, and Specialist Token 10% as well.
Let me ask you a question. When they say Team Redeploy, that is the process in which you're just getting one person back.
Correct.
Like one individual, but it's not like your entire team is being redeployed, because that would be interesting if there was a price or something you did to get your entire team back.
That would be an interesting perk to add. Kind of like the outcome of the most wanted contract, but to be able to purchase that could be cool.
Exactly.
But as we've all known, yes, when you do a supply run, you unlock that, you go to the buy station, you can get a free buyback. That's still the case now, but they've more heavily discounted some other items, I guess, to make it a little more enticing.
Or let me ask you this, going down this rabbit hole, you might think this is a stupid idea, but for amateurs like us that play with typically good players, what would add a really funky dynamic and probably some really angry individuals is if you could go to a buy station or something, and if you were to commit suicide, and your entire team would come back. Like you would sacrifice yourself for another teammate.
Wow.
Like think about that dynamic.
That's getting really kind of dark and intense there. Some real sacrificial stuff. I don't know about that one, although, you know, that's kind of World War II theme. Very much see that in a lot of these movies. So maybe that's, I doubt they're going to be throwing that in there, but a wild thought from the 10-inch Cowboy. In addition to these buy station changes, there was also some money tweaks here, and that the cash rewards for various contracts were adjusted and reduced. So recons now used to pay $1,300 per player, now down to only $1,100. Scavenger used to pay $2,500, and now that's down to $1,600. Bounties used to pay $3,800, now that's down to $2,500. And supply runs from $1,300 down to $1,200. They said, we recognize this may be a polarizing change, but we feel it's a necessary one when the gate access to loadouts behind a large when we gate access to loadouts behind a large price tag, as is the case, we force players to continue moving around the map. This works to disincentivize camping. While we do not anticipate this change will have a large impact on the most skilled players, those who stay put and avoid engagements will find their resources strained and quickly falling behind. This is part of how we subtly encourage map movement and emphasize other facets of skill like movement, teamwork, strategy, and map knowledge. By delaying loadout acquisitions, we're further smoothing out player power such that each increase to it is much more noticeable and allows more room for those secondary skill sets to shine. We will be monitoring the mode and player feedback closely to ensure this change is having the intended effect. Now that's quite a, fucking holy shit.
There's a lot, that's a lot to unpack actually. If you really dig into what they're saying, I'm paraphrasing, but this is exactly what they're saying. They're literally recognizing that camping is lame as fuck. They're trying to disincentivize camping. They don't want people sitting around. They want people actively engaging other players, which is, I've never heard them say that before of you. Like, that's incredible, because if you know that's their motive, if they think that's what's best for the game, you can apply that logic to so many other parts of the game, whether it's weapons, whether it's obviously like, you know, money in regards to purchasing things like incentives, rewards. Like it's actually kind of mind-blowing if you break that down.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like the changes were fairly subtle too, and this is like, their master plan behind it. I guess it might help like nudge people towards that, but I don't know. It seems like there's still pretty ample money on, you know, the game to get your loadouts, especially in Rebirth, but I guess most of these changes are really applying to Verdansk, which we haven't really been hitting up. A little too frustrating for my likes. But speaking of Verdansk, the Gulag was altered a bit this patch as well.
Wait. Before we hop into the Gulag, I'm still not done with this paragraph of what they said, because I want to ask you a question here now that I'm actually going down this rabbit hole mentally. The Cowboys' hole is getting exposed, and I want to explain this. So you got them basically saying camping, we don't want camping, we don't want people sitting there, we don't want anyone, we want engagement essentially. They want that engagement. What weaponry would you say lends itself to camping? Obviously, sniping is a huge camping tool, right? Like, snipers are, you know, you camp, you snipe, that's what people do. I would say that this incentivizes, what I'm getting at is that I bet you that that's why they're always focusing the metas on long-range ARs. Or some kind of SMG, right? Like, that's why everything else doesn't matter, because they're trying to incentivize people moving around and playing the game. And those weapons are if they make those weapons the best, that's how you use them, is moving around. You see what I'm getting at?
Interesting theory. I guess what you're saying aligns with that. Although I think snipers are still, it seems like we're seeing a lot of snipers lately, but.
Yeah, but there's a difference between the car, obviously the marksman's rifle, which is much more mobile, much more, you see people using that. It's a quote sniper, but it's a marksman's rifle. You see people using that a lot differently than they do, like, obviously the long range snipers. You know, the long range snipers are more based for camping, setting up, looking, finding, shooting. Like the car, you know, you watch good car players, they're running, jumping, sliding, you know, quick scoping, firing, like, you know, they're building those for quick ADS shots. You know, it's not necessarily a camping situation.
All right. Well, I agree. They're trying to push the more aggressive out in the open play. Has that been enough exposure for the Cowboys whole here? Are we ready to move on to the Gulag news?
We can move on. This is tripping me out. Go ahead.
All right. Well, that was a big rabbit hole there. We're coming out of it into the Gulag, often where we end up. And some changes this week they made with the patch is that LMGs, except for the RPD and all tactical rifles, have been removed from Gulag loadouts. And they said, we feel an emphasis on submachine guns and assault rifles better suits this version of the Gulag.
Yeah, no shit. I agree. No question. Yeah, it's so silly running around with an MG82 inside of that damn Gulag or a sniper rifle or whatever. Like, no, you want to be running around there with an SMG or an AR. Like, it's so obvious, you know?
Yeah, this Gulag really is about quick reactions.
Yeah.
You can be I like it. You're kind of naked no matter where you are from one way or the other, which I guess really disadvantages us with our narrow FOV. Maybe it's a little bit easier you have visibility when you have the wider FOV in this Gulag. But I agree. Although one thing that's been weird is they've been giving you like two primary weapons. I had one round where like they started me with a pistol or something ridiculous, and then I got killed by an SMG, and I find out after the fact I had a fucking like SMG as a secondary. And I'm like, what? Like what? Why am I have two weapons in the fucking Gulag? Just give me one and the other guy one, and let's duel it out with those, you know?
You got to be aware, you know?
Yeah, so I've been checking that little bottom right where it shows you your weapons as the countdown's going, although, again, not much time in the Gulag. We're essentially like Rebirth only guys here.
We did get a little bit of Verdanskin this week, though. We after like, it was pretty sweaty Rebirth every now, we would get some games where back to back to back where it was like, oh my God, this is insane. Let's go mix it up. Let's try quads on the big map,
Yeah, and then we would get our ass kicked a few rounds, and then we're like, all right, back to Rebirth.
Yeah, but it's kind of refreshing, though, to play even if you're just the act of dropping in, getting loadout, doing a couple contracts. Like, we wiped a couple of teams, I feel like. It wasn't like instant death like Rebirth. And it's nice to have a breath of fresh air where you're not like on like methamphetamines playing, just you're so tense, because Rebirth is so great. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel you. It is a nice change of pace. It's a different strategy. It hones different skills. The Iron Trials as well, still going on. A lot of fun there. Loving that. But that said, another welcome change with this patch is that to meleeing, and they said weapons will no longer deal more than 120 damage per melee hit, which means if it takes 250 damage to down someone, doing 2 melees is not going to get the job done. I guess it's going to require 3. Welcome change there.
Didn't they already do that?
It was dealt. That change was affecting, it sounded like, explicitly the starting pistol on Verdansk. So not on Rebirth, it seemed like that pistol had, but now it seems like across the board, no matter the melee, weapon in hand, when you smack someone with the butt of the gun, you got to do it 3 times, I guess, to get them down.
Thank God. This week, I had a few times this week where I dropped in and I had the weapon. Someone's dropping on me and I'm looking up like, where the hell is this person? What is going on right now? They're obviously right on top of me. And I turn around and I start shooting them and I'm trying to follow them and they beat me down quicker than I can actually kill them and I have my loadout. And those are the most frustrating moments because not only do you feel like a total idiot, they're thinking to themselves like, oh, this guy's an idiot. Oh, I just got him. Oh, what a loser. And it just made me so mad. So I'm really glad that they're doing that in Rebirth.
I agree. I think that type of play, it shouldn't be rewarded. That shouldn't be an easy way to counter someone, is like you just drop in, and you're just going to keep coming at someone trying to beat them. I fucking hate that. I like gunning those punks down when they're trying to smack me. So I like this change. That said, there were some adjustments additionally to loot. The armor satchel, gas mask, and self-revive drop rates have been reduced, they said. The ground loot XM4 and ground loot Bullfrog were also tweaked. They said the attachments have been updated to be more in line with the popular builds of those weapons. So I guess I like that. It seems like they've refreshed some of the ground loot options. I'm kind of liking the ground loot. A lot of cool variety of blueprints there. AK is pretty frequent too, and they're really good ones. So I'm digging that.
Yeah, honestly, the state of weaponry is, even in my point of view, in a great place. And I think you got to feel the same way, right?
Oh, 100%. I'd say probably the most balanced the game has ever been. I don't think there's, you have a new guy who hasn't played for a while. They get into your lobby like, so what's the gun to run this time? And it's like, you're listing off 4 or 5. And then I've literally been kind of qualifying everything by saying, like, honestly, everything's good. Like, if you like something, you probably can run that and have some success right now, that's what it's all fucking about.
So can I ask maybe this is a super dumb question. Let me just ask the dumbest question there is. Why doesn't Activision or whomever, Raven, whatever company is doing this, why don't they just lock it up? Don't change a fucking thing. Why don't they just fucking leave it here? You know what I'm saying? It's balanced.
Well, the scales are balanced, but the thing is about a game that's a battle royale, about a game that has a battle pass and seasons and mid-season updates, and they want the kiddies to buy the fucking blueprints and all of that shit, is there's always going to be addition that those scales are going to be added onto. And so when you add one, it's that ripple effect. It can kind of send other shit out. And only imagine when we have this new integration into Vanguard, that's a whole new set of weaponry coming down the pipeline, potentially looking at 3 versions of certain guns. I think like the AK especially, there could end up being 3 fucking versions of that thing. Some of the other pistols, the Kar 98, I guess 2 versions of that. So as we've said, that's a whole different topic. I think they need to really par down the weapons or combine them. Like, we don't need 2 versions of the same fucking gun. Let's get it back in line. But that, to me, that's why I feel like the balance, it's elusive. But I think as they get it more balanced, it's less likely to go out of balance. So where we're at now, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, but my thing is, like, at what point is Raven doing too much weapon adjustments? You know what I'm saying? Like, everything is constantly changing. You never ever get comfortable with your loadout unless you're playing every single day like a crazy person. That's probably why this week was so enjoyable for us, is because we were playing every day. We fucking fine-tune our shit and we were ready to rock and roll. But if you don't have time to play and grind it out that much, you're never actually caught up with it. And that's the hard part. You know what I mean?
That's true. And we had some friends expressing some frustration over that. However, I feel like the pool of guns that are viable is as big as it's ever been. It's not like you're getting pigeonholed. It may be a thing where, yeah, you really hop on the bandwagon, and now that bandwagon, the tires come off, like with the Krieg. But like for me, it was like, okay, when the AK went away, went back to the C58, leveled the C58, that kind of got nerfed a little, went away from it. Now the things are coming back into the fold. So it's like, if you play the game consistently, you're leveling up weapons, especially these ground loot weapons. You're usually kind of finding yourself that you can roll with the punches.
Yeah, but is there any part of you that feels that them consistently making these weapon adjustments and changing things around all the time, one would argue too much, is their weak attempt at keeping things fresh since they haven't released a new map anymore? Because they didn't do these weapon updates back, say January, February, March. They would fix metas that were broken, but it wasn't so constantly being, manipulated. And I feel like they may be doing that just to keep your attention span there because they haven't, released the big map.
Well, the way to look at it is I think they could do that. Or what if they left the weapons still? Things are out of balance. People are going to complain even more. I'm going to hate that situation even more. It's going to get kind of stale. You're running the same fucking loadouts. If they had not nerfed the Krieg, would you be running the Gallo right now?
No, that's a good point. You're right. That's a worthy point. I hear you there. You're right. Yeah, them mixing things up does. Yeah, I mean, I guess it does keep you interested.
They don't want people getting complacent or bored, which some of us like. We're, playing guys. We like to have the fucking gun. Some of us would run the M4 with like the MP5 if they hadn't touched those way back. That's the original loadout for the Tron here. I'm back on the MP5, I guess, but. So it's the nature of the beast. I agree with you. Some of it's frustrating, but again, that's the nature of the Battle Royale. The updated release is the continual fucking adding on of the arsenal. It's just, we got to roll with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Your point is well heard. So yes, agreed.
But at some point you got to imagine it's got to come to a head. It's kind of like when you keep shoving shit in that closet under that bed, there's a deep down dark feeling in your gut where you're like, someday I'm going to have to fucking deal with this. This is going to come back. It's going to have to be dealt with. I can't just keep shoving it in there.
It could be, stuff under your bed, your closet, emotions, just burying them and burying them. At some point, you have to talk about it.
That's right. Those chickens are going to come home to roost. But that said, that's going to do it for us this week on the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. Really dove into that weapons patch. Really loving the state of the game, really getting our frequency of play up, and our KDs I think are on the rise as well. So watch out as we barrel in towards our 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, maybe we keep an eye out here. And so what, did we decide on a date? Not to, ruin the momentum of the outro, but did we decide on a date when our 52nd episode would be released?
So that, doing the quick math on the calendar, I think that puts us at November 22nd, which Vanguard, as we said, is set to release on November 5th. So that would be about 2.5 weeks. That might be right before the new Warzone goes live. But that said, we got to get ready for like an extravaganza. I can't wait for when that happens, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, oh God, I don't even want to, that'd be so exciting. We'd have to do something special. We'd have to do a streams. I don't know what we do. We do something.
Well, that is several weeks away, but rapidly approaching. And that's going to do it for us this week. Until next week.
Good luck in the gulag.